Hey guys, it's Tahira and today I am doing another recent reads video. I think this is books I've read recently, number 5 or number 6. I'm not quite sure, but it has been a while since I've posted. Every time I go to college it just gets super busy and I never actually get time to film anything. I'm not reading as fast as I usually would as if I'm home. But over the past few months, since the start of 2023, I read a total of 12 books so far, and I'm on my 13th book of the year. So I'll be talking about all the books I've read basically in 2023 so far. My goal is 50 books for the year, so I am like 6 books behind schedule, which I'm hoping to get back on track this summer because usually summer is like when I have way more time to read because I'm home and I don't have like school to worry about. But I'm just gonna go ahead and start talking about all the books that I've read over the past 5 months. So I actually figured out that out of the 12 books, 5 of them are actually my sister's books, which is kind of crazy because I didn't think I borrowed that many books from her, but I did apparently, so I'll be talking about those today. So the first book that I'll be talking about is a book from my sister that I borrowed at the very beginning of the year, which is the first book I read in 2023, and that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. So this book follows a man named Jason who is like living this life with his son and his wife, and then one day he goes out for like a drink or something, and on the way back he's kidnapped, and then after he's kidnapped he wakes up and he's like in a completely different life, in a different not different world, but basically a different life where like none of the life that he had before with his wife and son exists, and it's like just a completely new life for him. So then he's trying to figure out what's going on with everything. So I give this book 4 stars, which means I really loved it, and it was a very intriguing concept, which is why I picked it up. And over the years I've heard a lot of people talking about this book, and generally just a lot of good reviews about it, and I really loved it. I think there's a lot of conversations obviously about like science and physics with the whole like new life thing, with like how that could happen and things, and I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, there's just a lot of science talk about in this book because of like the concept. So I thought that was really interesting. I don't know how much of it's actually like real and rooted in real scientific concepts, but nonetheless it was still interesting to read about. This being like kind of like a thriller, psychological thriller, is full of a lot of twists and turns throughout the book. The only reason that I docked a star was that this is so the ending was a lot more underwhelming than I thought. Just the way the book was playing out with all these twists and turns, it kind of just ended really abruptly in my opinion, and I didn't love it. And I do understand why it was done the way it was, because ultimately this isn't a story about all like the science stuff or all like the thriller stuff. It's more a story about love, and because of this the ending is like really quiet in a way because of that, which is kind of different from the rest of the book because it's like played out to be a thriller. He's like trying to find out what's going on with this life and what happened to his old life, like whether it really existed or not. So because of that there was a lot of twists and turns, and then just the way that ultimately, because it's a love story, it just ended in a really abrupt way. I feel like I'm just repeating myself. I've like forgotten how to talk about books. But although I understand like why the ending was done the way it was because of like the way the story is, I think that it could work, or it does work in some ways, but just personally for me, since it was a thriller, I just wanted it to have like a more of a bang of an ending and more thrilling, I guess. The next book is another thriller that I read from my sister, and that is No Exit by Taylor Adams. So this is a mystery thriller novel following a girl named Darby who is going to Utah from her college, and fun fact, she actually goes to the exact same college that I do. I don't know if I'm doxing myself, I don't really care, but yeah, she goes to the exact same college that I do, but she's going home, and because of a snowstorm she gets stuck at a rest stop with a bunch of other random people, and then while she's there she notices this white van and that there's a little girl like kind of locked and trapped inside this van, and then the rest of the story she's trying to figure out like who's this little girl, and also she's like stuck at this rest stop with a bunch of people. She's trying to figure out who's behind this van and who is doing this to this little girl. This one I gave like 3.5 stars for some reasons. So this was like I think it was a very fast-paced book, but it was also predictable in a lot of ways. I feel like I kind of predicted pretty early on like who was involved with this girl and her kidnapping and everything. Because it's a snowstorm and everyone that could be the suspect is already like trapped in this like rest stop, it's like there's not that many suspects, so I feel like in my opinion it's usually kind of easy to figure out in these circumstances like who's done it, unless it's like written super well. Also, I feel like this book is a lot less of a mystery thriller and more of like a survival story, because we find out who it is pretty early on. It just ends up being a survival story of the main character and I guess the little girl trying to survive the actual suspect and the person involved with everything. And then because it's a survival story, it got a lot more gruesome than I was expecting, because they're just trying to escape the people, trying to figure out what to do and everything. And since they're trapped because of a snowstorm in this like one rest stop, it's like there's a lot of tension because of that, which I really loved. And also at the end, like after like the whole like the villain and everything is really like revealed, I feel like their motives and everything was really weird. I didn't really understand the motives of the villain and why they did what they did, which is also why I kind of docked a star for this one. But ultimately I think this was a super fast-paced and quick read that I really flew through, and I think that because of the tension of it being all in like one closed area, it lended itself well to the setting and everything. So ultimately I enjoyed it as like just a fun thriller to get through in a little bit. Next book is again another book I borrowed from my sister, and that is It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. This one is the sequel to It Ends With Us, which is a very, very popular book that I'm sure a lot of people have heard of. And it really recently kind of got a resurgence because of book talk. Colleen Hoover is a very controversial author, as everyone knows. There's a lot of love for her, there's a lot of hate for her. I am not like a full-on hater. My sister is one of the lovers of Colleen Hoover. She really loves her books. So that's why like she has like a lot of them. So like I'm going through Colleen Hoover's books because of my sister. But this one is just a kind of fluffy story after the ending of It Ends With Us, because It Ends With Us deals with a lot of more heavier topics than this book. This book I also feel like Colleen Hoover wrote for the internet in some ways, because everyone loves Atlas and Lily so much from the first book and their dynamic and their relationship. So I think that's why Colleen Hoover ended up writing a whole book about them. So in those regards I think this was unnecessary in a lot of ways, but I also feel like it's also very cute, which did get boring sometimes, like how cute and fluffy it was, but I think it was just meant to be like a feel-good story, which I guess it was. I think Atlas is also shown to be overly kind of cute and really sweet in a way to contrast how Ryle is, especially in the last book with his abuse. One thing also really not loved but really appreciated, I guess, is that Ryle's abuse is still shown in this book even after Lily and Ryle's relationship has ended after the end of It Ends With Us. And I think that's a really great way to show that the abuse doesn't just stop even if you're out of the relationship. In some ways it can continue in a lot of ways, especially because Lily and Ryle both share a child, so because of that Ryle's always going to be in her life. And so I like that it showed that the abuse doesn't always just end after the relationship is over, and often it can get worse after it's over. So yeah, I think that was a really great thing to add. Not like good in that it was just like a good thing, but just like an important thing to show, I think. So yeah, I give it 3 stars. I think it was just unnecessary but also just cute, and I love cute, I love romances. I'm just such a romantic and everything, so I did appreciate it because of that. But yeah, I think it was just unnecessary as well. Next book, not a book that my sister read. Actually, she borrowed this from me before I read it. And that is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This one, obviously, I gave 5 out of 5 stars. I love Sarah J. Maas, and I had been putting this book off for so long, just because of how thick it is. I think it's like almost 800 pages around. I think it's like 750 pages. So it took me a really long time to get to this book because just of how intimidated I was with the size. But I'm so glad that I finally read it this year. And surprisingly, like with how big it is, I actually really flew through this story because of how much I was enjoying it. And I actually enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. After the end of A Court of, like the whole Akatar, which is actually right there, but the whole Akatar trilogy, I wasn't really sure about how I would feel about Nesta's story, but I actually really loved watching her development as a character in this book, and I just really had a lot of fun with it. I think this book is also not a lot of plot in it just because it's really focusing in on Nesta as a character and exploring her character, especially after the war and everything. Nesta was really affected by it, so I think just watching her go through her trauma as well as trying to heal from it was a really great experience. And I think that a lot of people also commented about how that's a really great part of the story, is like watching her character develop as she's going through the healing process after this big war. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rest of the, I don't know, trilogy series. I have no idea when the book is gonna come out. I think like Sarah Maas has definitely slowed down her writing, I think, in the past few years, so I have no idea when the sequel to this is gonna come out, but I will be looking forward to it. Also, if you can hear like drilling and slamming and stuff, that's like people outside working on our floors, so I'm so sorry if that is disturbing. The next book is also another book that has been sitting on my shelf for a while, and that is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. So this one is about this mother-daughter duo who moves to this like little perfect town where everything is like planned and everything, and then they come in and kind of disrupt their little community that's in that city. I give this one 4 stars, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I did. I did read Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng, which I also really loved. I think I read that a few years ago for high school, I think 4 years ago at this point. But yeah, so I was really looking forward to reading this as well, and I also really enjoyed this. So I think Celeste Ng is definitely an author that I will be like looking out for. I know she just released I think Our Missing Hearts, which is her newest book, so I will definitely be looking into that sometime soon, hopefully. But yeah, I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. This one is definitely more of a slow burn and very character focused. Like there's not really that much plot in it. It's very just a character study of all these people that are living in this town, as well as Mia and Pearl, who are the mother and daughter that moved to this town. But despite it being like a character driven novel, I think prefer like a plot driven novel, just because I tend to get bored with just like character work. So I actually was surprised that I really enjoyed this, and I actually couldn't put the book down despite it being a purely character focused book, which was also surprising. I think also most of the characters felt pretty fleshed out, which is, I guess it is a character book, so I'm not surprised, except for 2 of the characters, which were kind of just there, and I didn't really know much about them other than like how they served our main characters. But they were just side characters, so it's really not that big of a deal. Actually, also right after I read the book, I watched the series of it on Hulu. I think I definitely prefer the book to the series. I think the way that Mia and Pearl are portrayed in the series, at least Mia, I thought she was really annoying in the TV show. And I didn't like how she acted. I think it was still, overall it was an okay series. Like it's not that long, so it was pretty quick to get through, but I definitely prefer the book to the TV show in this case. The next book is one of my most anticipated books of the year. I feel like a lot of people can probably guess what it is that know me in real life, or if you know me through this. I don't know who's watching this, but that is Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. This is the long-awaited finale book to the Last Hours trilogy by Cassandra Clare, which is like in the whole Shadowhunter universe. Of course, I gave this book 5 stars. Really, it's like a 4.5 stars now that I think about it, but still, I loved it. It's Cassandra Clare. I will love probably everything that she writes. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about this book just because it's a finale. I feel like I can't really talk about it that much because like there's a lot that happens in the first 2 books as well. Of course, I loved the characters in this. I think that this cast of characters is one of my favorites out of all her series, and I just love their dynamic so much. I think that in true Cassandra Clare fashion, it's very angsty and dramatic. The one reason I would like kind of doff half a star is because the ending was just wrapped up a little bit too quickly and neatly for me. There was a lot of like different big large scale conflicts happening, but I feel like the scale, like compared to the scale of the conflict, like the way they were wrapped up and like resolved was just too quick and too small and just not like not comparable to how big the threat like was made out to be. But it's Cassandra Clare. I love her all her books, and I'm really excited for Swordcatcher later this year, which is like a brand new series. I'm really excited to see what she does with that. And also after this, now there's only 3 more books in the Shadowhunter universe, which is the Wicked Powers, and after that it'll be over, which I'm really like so sad about. Like I want this world to continue forever. But yeah, it was just a great finale. I think that the characters of this series I think are the strongest point, and usually were the main focus of the previous books as well. The next book I actually got on my trip to London this past December, and I got it from Foyle's bookstore, which I feel like is a popular bookstore there. And that is Loveless by Alice Oseman. Oh wait, it matches my shirt. Oh, that's so cute. So Loveless follows our main character Georgia, who is starting university, and she's trying to kind of figure out her sexuality as well. She's always been seeing other people, she's always seen other people in love and read fanfics and everything. So she's kind of confused as to what her own sexuality is. And as she goes to university, she hears words like asexual and aromantic, and she feels like those align best with her identity. So basically it's about an asexual main character figuring out that she is asexual. This one I gave 3 stars. One thing is that this book is actually like kind of different than I was expecting. It's a lot more about discovery than it is about acceptance. I thought it would be a lot more about finding out that she's asexual pretty early on, and then going through the story learning to accept that she is and kind of learning more about it. But it was more about learning about different sexualities, and then once she hears the word, she does a lot of research about it, but she still didn't think that she is. So it's a lot more about figuring out that she is than figuring it out and then trying to learn to accept that that is who she is. I don't know if that makes sense. I think that it's a solid story, but the writing was just okay at times, and I thought the dialogue could have been better, which is a little bit simple, I feel like at times, but overall I think it was still an enjoyable story, which is why I gave it 3 stars. The next book I got from the library back when I was in college, and that is Gold Diggers by an author that I'm completely forgetting the name of. This one I gave 3 stars. It follows this basically this mother and daughter. They're using people's gold to create like a potion that they drink that gives them powers. It's kind of weird. It's like if someone had a lot of ambition and you wanted to like steal some of it and use it, you would like take some of their jewelry, the gold jewelry, make a potion out of it, drink it, and like you'll get some of their ambition. So like people use, like the mother used it so that her daughter would do well in school and things like that. I think the concept is really interesting. I don't really have a lot to say about this book. It was okay. I thought the writing was fine. The only thing is like in the middle there was like a time switch where I was like, it started off as one timeline and I was like really getting into it, and then it just switched to like 5 years later or something, or like some amount of years later, and I did not like that part at all. I think it just dragged. It was the same. It was boring. There wasn't really much happening, and so because of that I'm just landing on a 3 stars. Honestly, I don't have that much to say. Next is a book that I was also highly anticipating because I love the author's other books, and that is Five Survive by Holly Jackson. I have talked about her other series, the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, so many times in my videos, so like I'm pretty sure everyone's getting tired, but I love that series so much, so I was really excited to see what she had coming out next. So this one is about these group of friends who are going, I think like on their senior trip or something, and on the way they're going in an RV, and their RV breaks down, and then like a weird person is there, and they like realize they're trapped, and then they have to like kind of figure out how to escape and get home safely and everything. This one I actually gave 3.5 stars. I really wanted to rate it higher, but this one is actually way more of a survival story than a mystery story, because of Good Girls Guide to Murder is so mystery focused. I thought this would also be the same, but it's much more of like learning, like because they're like stuck in this RV and there's like killers outside or whatever, that they'll learn to survive rather than like also try to figure out like what's going on. But the main aspect was really surviving the night. I will say this was a super fast-paced novel because it spans only like 8 hours, or like the night basically. It's like very fast-paced because it's just a very small amount of time frame. But because the setting is so limited, because they're like stuck in this RV, the RV is the only setting in the book, which kind of got boring after a while. So I don't know. I mean, I know it's like that's the main part of the story, is that they're stuck in this RV. I don't know how it could have been improved, but I just thought that it could have been more interesting to add some other aspect in some way. And because of that, it was like slow in the middle while they were trying to figure out what to do, and at the end, like after like the reveals were happening and everything, it just happened so fast and then just wrapped up completely. So it was a little bit jarring, and I didn't really love that as well. And then the villain, not the villain, but like when they figure out like what's actually happening, the villain, I guess, was like too bad to be like convincingly a good villain. It was just cartoonishly a cartoon villain, and just like the motives and everything just didn't make sense. I don't know, it was just weird. It was fast paced, so I liked it in that regard, where it was just an edge of your seat almost, but at the end it just got a little bit slow, and then everything just wrapped up too quickly for me. I'm definitely will look out for Holly Jackson in the future. Hopefully her next books are more mystery focused, because I definitely think I prefer that over a survival story. Next book is another book I borrowed from my sister, and that is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This one I gave 3 stars, and it follows this girl named Kenna, I think, who just got out of jail, and she is trying to figure out how to find her daughter again. I think who the main character is really unique, because I've never really seen, one, a perspective of someone who's getting out of jail, and 2, someone who's a girl who's getting out of jail. I feel like that's just an underrepresented, not category, but it's just something that's not really written about, especially if it's someone out of jail. It's usually, I feel like, a male. So it's really interesting to see that a main character who's a female who is just gotten out of jail. I think overall the premise had a lot of potential. It was really deep and touching, because this woman just got out of jail and she's basically on a mission to try to get her daughter back, which I think is a really great premise. But because it's a Colleen Hoover book and she finds this guy in this town that she's in, I feel like the romance became the main aspect of it, and the primary goal kind of got lost a little bit in the book, which I'm so sad about, because I feel like it had so much potential and just so many like deep things that could be touched on, but just weren't, because the romance kind of overtook the plot a little bit. So that's all I have to say about that. It's a 3-star book, so not terrible. I might knock it down to like 2.5, but I think 3 stars, I'm so comfortable with giving this a 3-star rating. The next book is a 1-star read, and if you know me, which I have no idea who you are, but I'm telling you this, but I never give book 1 star. The next book is a 1-star read, and I actually hated my experience reading it, and that is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. This one I was really excited to read because I've heard so many things about Sally Rooney. Obviously she has kind of been popular in the past like couple years, I think, especially with the rise of book talk. And I think the show came out, there's a show for one of her books too, so I was really excited to pick her up and see what I thought of her. I'd heard a lot of things about books like Normal People, but I just did not like it. Honestly, it was probably my mindset too, because I was a little bit distracted by the book, or distracted while reading the book, so I feel like I didn't fully grasp what was happening. Like, and it's a very character focused book too, so there wasn't really much happening beyond like people talking to each other. And because of this, I feel like a lot of characters were like being so philosophical, and I just did not like that. I feel like it just got too pretentious with people's philosophical musings, and I was like, it was weird because like people would be talking and then people would write letters to other characters and they'd be like super deep and philosophical all of a sudden, and I'm like, you're not Socrates, where is this coming from? So I just did not like that at all. I also did not like the writing style. The first thing I noticed was that the dialogue had no quotation marks, so you couldn't differentiate like what was the dialogue and what was just normal sentences. So after that I knew I would hate this book, and I kept reading because I thought it could redeem itself, but then it just kept getting worse. And it was just, I felt like it's such a chore to read, and I did not realize how much like quotation marks really help you to kind of break up the paragraphs and the lines and everything. But because it just was all the same, I just did not like it at all, and it was boring. So the next book is a 4-star read, which is the last book I'll be talking about. I have been talking for almost 40 minutes, so I'm really glad I'm at the end. But this is Queen of the Tiles by Hannah Alkoff, which is a story about this girl named Najma who is going to the Scrabble competition to try to win and also figure out, not figure out, but she's going after the death of her best friend Trina, who was like known as the Queen of the Tiles. She was really good, and who died the previous year at the same competition. And Najma goes, and while she's there, her best friend Trina's Instagram is revived again, and someone's posting like cryptic messages, so she goes out and tries to figure out like what's really going on and what happened with her best friend's death. I think this is a really refreshing story. Scrabble is something that I've never really read about. I think it's a really interesting hobby. So I thought that was really great. And there was a lot of little words like scattered around. I learned a lot of different words, like cool sounding, intellectual sounding words. So I will be dropping those to make me sound smart. Just, it was a mystery novel mainly, but also her like trying to deal with her grief and heal from the death of her best friend. This was also set in Malaysia, which is a place that I've never really read about before. Even though that didn't really play too much into the story because everything is in this like closed, I think it's like a closed room mystery. I think there's a name for it. It's like a closed room mystery because everything is in this like one building where the Scrabble competition is being held. That was a truck. Anyways, so yeah, she's trying to win this competition, also figure out what's happened with her best friend, also trying to heal with the grief, from the grief and everything. It was just a lot of stuff going on, but I think the writing was really beautiful and I really enjoyed the story. And because it was a mystery, I think it also became like really interesting to follow just the mystery itself. I just really wanted to know what happened. I think at the end, the way everything played out and the end result was just a little bit too dramatic for me, for like them being teenagers. I'm like, maybe this is a little bit too much. But overall, I really enjoyed the story, and I'm actually really interested in continuing to read Hannah Alkoff. I know she's written The Weight of Our Sky, which I've heard a lot about in the past, so I definitely will be looking forward to picking that up sometime in the future. But yeah, these are all the books that I have read over the past few months since January. Apparently I have 4 minutes left, if battery, so I will be wrapping this up quickly. But let me know down below, what is your favorite book that you've read so far this year, or if you read any of the books that I've just mentioned. Let me know what you think of those books, as of course I would love to know. But hopefully I will be getting back to making videos. Every summer it happens that I like get back into it and like revive my channel just because I have more time. So hopefully I will be looking forward to making more videos. I also want to make like longer term videos, like with like reader experiments that people have been doing. Because I don't read that fast, it just doesn't work out. It just will take a lot of time to film, so I don't know if I'll do that, but I'll be looking forward. But I have like 2 minutes left of battery. So anyways, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and hopefully I will see you next time soon. Bye.